Sir, good evening, sir. Guests to join money to come.
அண்ணா கெஸ்ட் இப்ப ஜாயின் பண்ணதண்ணா ஷார்ட் வைல்ல ஜாயின் பண்ணதண்ணா
கேக்குதுங்களாம்மா?
கேக்குதண்ணா கேக்குதண்ணா கெஸ்ட் இப்ப ஜாயின் பண்றேன்னு சொல்லி இருக்கு 2 minutes இல்லண்ணா.
ஓகே ஓகே ஓகேம்மா.
சரி அண்ணா. Unmute பண்ணலாம். Ma'am, good evening, ma'am. Now we are starting the session, valedictory function.
Okay, good evening. It's a pleasure to be with you. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Now we are starting the program, ma'am. Valedictory program. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening. One who makes a habit of prayer will easily overcome all difficulties, says Holy Mother Shri Sharda Devi. I welcome our Vidyalaya Bhagavatar Anna to sing the prayer song for us.
இறைவனை இங்கே காணாமல் இறைவனை இங்கே தேடுகின்றார். கங்காதரா காவர்ணா முருக பங்கேருக துறை ஐயன கோவி எங்கே மங்கும் பொழுதளவும் வாடி தொழில் புரியும் மக்களெல்லாம் இறைவன் படி வல்லவோ அங்கம் குறைந்தழுகி ஐயா என கையேந்தும் அகத்தின் கதவருகே அழைப்பவல்லவனல்லவோ எங்கே தேடுகின்றார். மண்ணை ஊழும் புலியும் வாசப்பெருக்குவோரும் மாறா கருணை வடிவங்கள் தாமல்லவோ கண் பார்த்த துர்க என்று கையேந்தும் ஏழையும் தன் கண்ணின் முன் தெரிகின்ற கடவுள் உருவமன்றோ எங்கே தேடுகின்றாய் இறைவனை இங்கே காணாமல் இறைவனை எங்கே தேடுகின்றாய்.
Thank you, Anna. I invite Dr. S. Logesh Kumar, Assistant Professor, Ramakrishna Mission Vivekananda Educational Research Institute, Faculty of Disability Management and Special Education, to welcome the audience and present the report of the webinar.
Very good evening to one and all present here. First and foremost, we offer our humble salutations to Holy Trio for their blessings in successful completion of this two-day international webinar. First, we extend our warm welcome to Dr. N. Muthayyanna, Dean, School of Rehabilitation Sciences and Physical Education, RKMVERI, for this valedictory function. We welcome you now. Today we have with us the eminent personality, Dr. Anupam Ahuja, Ma'am, Head Department of International Relations, National Council for Educational Research and Training, New Delhi. On behalf of RKMVERI, FDMSC Management, faculty members, research scholars and delegates, we wholeheartedly welcome you for this function. Welcome you, ma'am. Next, we welcome Dr. A. Sudha, the Organizing Secretary of this two-day international webinar, and other faculty members who are very instrumental in organizing this event. Last, we sincerely welcome all the delegates, research scholars, trainees who are all with us in this virtual platform for past 2 days. Here comes the brief report of this two-day international webinar. A two-day international webinar on understanding learning disability prospects and concern in collaboration with Rehabilitation Council of India, New Delhi, commenced with a prayer song on 22nd February 2022. With the blessings of Swami Garishtanandaji Maharaj, Administrative Head RKMVERI and the Secretary Ramakrishna Mission Vidyalaya Educational Institutions, Coimbatore. Dr. A. Sudha, Organizing Secretary of this two-day international webinar, welcomed the gathering and presented the theme of this webinar. Sri Nachiketa Rao, Director, National Institute of Empowerment of Persons with Multiple Disabilities, Chennai, gave the inaugural address and highlighted the key aspects like classification of learning disability, significance of cultural linguistics and its impact with instructional methods, and importance of visual representation, phonemes and various assistive devices for students with specific learning disabilities at early stage. Followed by inaugural address, Dr. N. Muthayyanna, Dean, School of Rehabilitation Sciences and Physical Education, RKMVERI, in his special address said that in spite of several languages and cultural diversities, we are still facing difficulties in diagnosing, identifying and labeling learning disabilities like any other disabilities or condition. He also added that appropriate solution must be targeted to address the issues of students with learning disabilities. Policies and legislations must put into practice effectively for the betterment of learning disabled people. The inaugural session concluded with formal vote of thanks proposed by Dr. Soumya Chandra, Assistant Professor, Department of Special Education, Intellectual Disability, RKMVERI, FDMSC. First day we had 5 technical sessions. The first technical session was handled by Dr. Jayanti Narayan, Visiting Professor of Inclusive Education, Faculty of Health, Education and Society, University of Northampton, UK. In your session, the following points were highly stressed, like overview of learning disability, difference between low academic achievers and learning disability, types of learning disability with Indian perspective, and certification of specific learning disabilities and research practice at the early years. Dr. Rupesh BN, Additional Professor and Consultant, Child and Adolescent Mental Health Unit, Adjunct Faculty, Center for Psychosocial Support in Disaster Management, Department of Clinical Psychology in Imhans, Bengaluru, India. In his second technical session, highlighted various methods of assessment and identification of learning disabilities. The third technical session was presented by Dr. Sudha A, Head Department of ID, Faculty of Disability Management, RKMVERI. In her session, Madam Sudha signified the reading difficulties and various remedial measures and application of classroom strategies for students with dyslexia. Ms. Farida Raj, Director, Center for Special Education, Hyderabad, India, handled the fourth technical session on dyspraxia, implications for intervention. She briefed about the causes, characteristics, diagnosis, perceptual motor difficulties, and do's and don'ts of children with dyspraxia. Technical session 5 was presented by Dr. Soumya Chandra, Assistant Professor, Department of Special Education, ID, FDMSE. She focused on teenagers with learning disability issues through the other window side. Speaker Soumya thrown light on issues of teenagers with LD occur across every now and then, and the possible assumptions behind this, such as school failure, rational and differential treatment, and emotional disturbances. Followed by the papers were presented by the delegates. 12 papers were presented on the first day of the international webinar. The second day, that is the technical session 6, was presented by Dr. Geeta Oberoi, Director, Orchids, New Delhi, India. Madam focused on screening process, screening app for specific learning disabilities, features, functions, and scoring in the app, and also she added the scope of using that app in screening specific learning disabilities. Technical session 7 was handled by Mrs. Geeta Gopi, Director of the program, Shah Shakti Karan Trust, Cochin, Kerala. On her session, Enabling Access to School Curriculum for Students with Learning Disabilities, emphasized the importance of school curriculum, its adaptation, procedures for adaptation, and curative measures for students with learning disability. 8th technical session on remediation to overcome dyscalculia was addressed by Dr. Anupama Sethi, founder Empower Kids USA. Madam Anupama highlighted the concept of dyscalculia in detail and its types and remedial measures in handling students with dyscalculia. The last technical session of the second two-day international webinar was handled by Ms. Archana Pokhrel, Director, Anmol Special Education Center, Nepal. She talked on perspectives on children with learning disabilities in Nepal, and also she highlighted the policies and other programs for students with learning disabilities in Nepal. Followed by that, papers were presented by the delegates. In total, 14 papers were presented on the second day. In total, 26 papers were presented by the delegates in the two-day international webinar. A total of 203 CRR participants, 12 non-CRR participants got registered and actively participated in the two-day international webinar on understanding learning disability, prospects and concern. The international webinar was streamed through Zoom Meet and the YouTube channel of RKMVERI. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. As feedback from participants' side, I request Mrs. Ramya, Assistant Professor, Sopan Suvidha College of Special Education, Mumbai, to share her valuable feedback about the iWebinar with us.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. It was really a well-organized conference. It was beneficial and helpful for all group of researchers, students, and who are in the field of rehabilitation. It was an appropriate way to flourish and enhance our understanding and knowledge of children with specific learning disability. And all the presentations were very much beneficial for the special educators as well as the rehabilitation professionals. Once again, I thank the FDMSE RKMVERI team and all the staffs and the students who put the initiative to do this wonderful program. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ramya. I now request Mrs. N.S. Gomati, Principal, Kalyan Trinity High School, to share her feedback with us.
Thank you, ma'am. A very good evening to all. Thank you so much for inviting me for the feedback. Respected members, it was an impressive start. Yesterday, the webinar was an impressive start with a complete coverage of various areas of the spectrum. Specific learning disability. It includes the identification, assessment, and the services that should be provided to these learning disability kids. Even a layman can understand how to do some modifications to for working for the betterment of the learning disability students. And in spite this limited time, the whole sessions were more and more informative. The speakers were articulate and they were knowledgeable. This kind of webinar with experienced faculties really teaches us a lot and it gives us more tips. The strategies we absorb these 2 days can be applied for the betterment of the learning disability kids. Even in our school and in many schools, the teachers can use these methods to help these kids, and the great resources would be helpful for research followers and special educators, trainees, and coordinators like myself. And the PPTs were well paced, and the time was also well set up. The package was fabulous. And let me conclude by saying that the concepts and materials presented for the 2-day seminar will be most definitely incorporated into my resources as a special educator. It will be able to create a new approach towards my career. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, madam. I request Mrs. KP Bindu, special educator from Palakkad, to share her feedback with us.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude for giving an opportunity to participate in the international webinar on understanding learning disability, prospects, and concern. For the past 2 days, we went through the types of specific learning disability and its handling techniques in its wide level. I truly appreciate the faculties who spend their time sincerely. Even though we are special educators, we don't have much knowledge about these much types of disabilities except dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia. Now we could understand how to screen, assess, intervene, and give remedial teaching. Being special educators, all sessions were very useful to us. We can apply these techniques which we received from here in our school children. We know that teaching mathematical skills to SLD children are very tough. Today we got many techniques from here. Some of the faculties like Jayanti ma'am, Geeta Gopi ma'am are familiar to us. All teachers done their part very well. We Keralites always depending Tamil Nadu for CRE programs. Ramakrishna Mission is something special in imparting training. On behalf of all special educators, I'm taking this opportunity to express our gratitude for all members who work behind this 2 days program. Once again, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, expressing our gratitude for those valuable feedbacks. The chief guest at valedictory function is Dr. Anupam Ahuja, Head, Department of International Relations, National Council for Education Research and Training, New Delhi. Here is a brief bio note about her. Dr. Anupam Ahuja is a professor in the Department of Education of Group with Special Needs and Head of International Relations Division at NCERT. She has more than 30 years of national and international experience in the field of education with a focus on developing inclusive practices. She revived the Education for All plans for 17 Asian and Pacific countries with a focus on the linkages between inclusion and the education for all. She has contributed to many national and international researches. Madam is the founder and co-editor of Enabling Education Network Asia and is currently a member of working group constituted by the Ministry of Human Resources Development for developing e-content for children with special needs and inclusive education. We respectfully welcome Madam Dr. Anupam Ahuja to present the valedictory address.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you all of you for the feedback and the report of the 2 days. It's a pleasure to be connected with you on this day of the conclusion. I come in to just say that you've had a fruitful 2 days and you are now ready to look ahead and take this learning from the 2 days into your schools as special educators, into the field as a researcher, and whatever other cap you're wearing, you're going to take this learning with you. And I must say that you are very fortunate to have attended this compact and very well planned 2 days for you. One of the benefits that comes of attending something like this, I can go down the memory lane, is that it triggers the thought processes. You know, we are all professionals in our field. We work hard to acquire our learning. But when we come together and we share thoughts with each other, we tend to think collectively. And we also try to look at our own learning from a different prism. So consider yourself very fortunate to be part of this program. And I would like to very pinpointedly say that this is an area which is unexplored still in our country. Specific learning disabilities has been included in the new education policy 2020, and that opens doors in a big way to look at it from different perspectives. We need to understand these children, as some of you said, Professor Jayanti Narayan helped you do, and so did the other speakers. We need to understand the context in which these children are, because let's remember that every child comes to school with a background from home, from his cultural context, from the language he speaks, and expects a continuity from the home to the school environment. A child with specific learning disability, as one of you just said, covers a spectrum. And this connection between the home environment and the school environment becomes a crucial stage and a crucial stepping stone. We need to understand these children, their strengths, and of course, their limitations. When I talk about limitations, I would like to say that when we look at ourselves as individuals, are we all perfect? Of course not. Do we have limitations? Yes, we do. But we are clever enough to cover our limitations and to show only our best characteristics and gloss over the limitations. Children with learning disabilities often cannot do that. They expose their reading lags, they expose their difficulties in mathematics, they expose their difficulties in writing skills. And due to the pandemic, which has been a difficult time for all of us, they also expose their emotional stress and emotional needs much more than other children. So you are now equipped to understand these few things that I have said, understand the child, and build a learning environment for the child which facilitates his or her learning. If you can do that, then you have uncovered the enigma of a learning disabled child. A child with learning disabilities often is an enigma. I use this word very consciously because he is intelligent, yet he is not able to perform in a school setting. So very often he is misunderstood. When we try to identify, Geet Oberoi man told you about an app which helps you to screen. When we try to identify, the teachers and the identification process stakeholders find it rather difficult because most of the tests are made in a foreign country. And when we administer those tests for our children, it becomes a cultural gap exists between what the test item is saying and where the child is. So even if you and I are tested, we will fall short sometimes in some items. So imagine a child who actually has a difficulty in expressing himself. So what I'm trying to say is a test, an assessment is just an indicator. What you and I need to understand is the child first, and then the disability. First and foremost, the person in front of you or the child is a person with some characteristics. Those characteristics need to be understood, and learning disability is one of the many other characteristics. If we see the child as a whole like this, then the whole process of teaching and learning becomes easy, and the process of promoting the potential of the child becomes easy for a person who is at the helm of affairs for learning. There is a need to understand how to identify them, how to assess them, how to build a program suitable to each child's need in regular classes. Research is a tool that helps us understand this, but all of you researchers who are connected today, I would like to give you a caution. And the caution is that your research, of course, will reveal a lot to you as a researcher. But remember, a teacher in a classroom, a parent at home, does not really need to know about your elaborate research findings. When you are looking at your findings, try to pick up certain points that a teacher can use. That is what we call demystifying research for teaching and learning. That's an onus on you as well. You ought to remember that any big research must lead to improvement in practice. And therefore, you must also think of how you will publish your research or share your research with simple outcome product tips. Because if you do not do that, you fail yourself as a researcher who is going to make a difference in practice. Children with learning disabilities need to be helped like other children. And research needs to feed into it, the process of learning very carefully. We need to think about the type of research we need to do, and it should be based on the needs of these children. Do we do a qualitative research only? Do we do a quantitative research only? Are we, as researchers, ready to take up longitudinal studies? Are we ready as researchers to do research in order to break certain myths that exist? For example, there is a myth, and there is also research evidence which says that girls are more prone. Some say, no, boys are more prone. Now, there is a big debate going on this. So can you focus on such aspects of research? How do we help teachers and children who come from different language backgrounds? Can our research give us leads there? What can a child with learning disability attain? That's also a question which I think when you close this program, you need to think about. Well, a learning disabled child can attain the sky. It is you as an adult working with the child who has to learn and tell and help the child how to learn. So the problem, let's remember, friends, is not with the child. The problem is with all of us who are working with the children. So we have to stop pointing a finger at the child. We have to remember that there are three fingers that point back at us. And we need to remember to look at those three fingers and think of systemic changes that will help a child with specific learning disabilities be feel included in a regular classroom and learn along with others. That is the way forward. That's what our international and national mandate asks us to do. And I wish each one of you here who has joined this international program of 2 days to work towards this end. Work towards an end which provides you with the energy to help every child realize his or her potential. I wish you good luck in your endeavors, and remember to continue to wearing the thinking cap that you have held on for the last 2 days, because this learning will prove to be very valuable. And I'm sure every time you go back to your work with children with learning disabilities, some learning that has happened during these 2 days will knock at you, and you will be able to unfold for yourself answers to questions that you raise and handle challenges that you face. Good luck to you, and thank you very much. Over to you.
Every child comes to school from diverse backgrounds. Thank you, ma'am, for emphasizing on the importance of understanding the difficulties of a child with learning disability between home environment and school environment, the utmost importance of understanding the child first and then their disability, and finally thrusting on the usability of research to target community. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, sir. I now request Dr. N. Muttaya, sir, Dean, Ramakrishna Mission Vivekananda Educational and Research Institute, FDMSC, to give the concluding remarks for the webinar.
Respected Madam Dr. Anubhav Mahija, whom I am meeting after 35 years. I met her in the department at NCRT under when she was working under Dr. Jangira and a great team. Thank you very much, Madam, for giving your consent to be with us for during this valedictory function. And Dr. Sudha, coordinator, and all my colleagues, my dear participants. As you all feel, these 2 days webinar must have given you some basic thoughts on how to deal with learning disabled people. But we have to play a major role in helping these children in various ways. I would like to put my concluding remarks on 5 important roles that we have to play as special educators or professionals in the field of special education. Number 1, we have to create awareness, as rightly Dr. Anubhav Mahija Madam mentioned, about the rights of persons with learning disabled as articulated in different acts, particularly the RTE Act 2009 and RPWD Act 2016, and their provisions and their entitlements. As we all aware, many of our own professionals are not able to understand or not able to get in acquaintance with the Act and provisions, are unable to implement several things that are mentioned in the Act. So we have to create awareness among people about these acts, number 1. Number 2, we have to sensitize not only professionals and special educators, but also general teachers towards understanding the basic needs of learning disabilities. Unless general teachers are trained or made aware of the needs of learning disabled, the inclusion of learning disabled in the mainstream is not very much possible. The third role that we have to play, we have to orient teachers and parents on issues related to identification, early identification of course, assessment, diagnosis, and medical interventions required by the children with LD. The fourth one, we have to impart special training to our own teachers on universal design of instruction and learning curricular adaptation for these children, and appropriate teaching learning strategies meant for them, and evaluation procedures suitable to LD children. And also the last one, we have to sensitize parents towards the availability and scope of digital resources available nowadays. We all know now the technology plays a very important role in dealing with all our disabled children. We call it assistive technology. The technology is to be made as accessible, simple, and easily available, which are useful to develop required skills among children with learning disabled. So these are our roles. We should all come together, collaborate our efforts for the successful attempts of not only learning disabled, all children with disabilities or differently abled children. With these few words, on my behalf, I thank Dr. Anubha Madam for her time to be with us, and also coordinated Dr. Sudha and her team for their strenuous efforts for making this 2 days webinar a successful one. And above all, I thank my management, especially Swami Garishananji Maharaj, who is the secretary and administrative head of all the off-campus faculties in Coimbatore campus of Ramakrishna Mission Vivekananda Education Research Institute, and also all the participants for being able to participate in these 2 days webinar, and especially to RCA for granting us CRE status to this 2 days webinar, and all those associated with the program. Once again, I thank you all. I wish you all success. Let us all unitedly make our children to be able to perform well, to be able to lead a better, successful life. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for those concluding remarks, which are takeaway. Awareness about the legal aspects of acts on rights of persons with learning disabilities, inclusion of children with learning disabilities, early identification, diagnosis and intervention, the importance of training to teacher or remedial and curriculum adaptation for children with learning disabilities, and the awareness about digital resources, availability of digital resources. Thank you so much, sir. The roots of all goodness lie in the soil of appreciation, says Dalai Lama. I welcome Dr. Sudha A., Head, Department of Intellectual Disability, RKMVERI FDMSC, to deliver vote of thanks.
My humble salutations to the lotus feet of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Holy Mother Sri Sharada Devi and Swami Vivekananda. Good evening all. At the outset, I take it as a privilege and honor to thank Revered Swami Garishanandaji Maharaj, Administrative Head RKMVERI FDMSC, for showering all his blessings and constant encouragement in all our endeavors, and also permitting us to conduct this 2-day program. And it is my privilege to thank Brahmachari Ajara Chaitanyaji Maharaj, Assistant Administrative Head, RKMVERI FDMSC, for all his guidance and support to this program. And it is my privilege and honor to thank Dr. N. Muthaiya Anna, Dean, School of Rehabilitation Sciences and Physical Education, RKMVERI, for all his guidance and support throughout this program. Also, this concluding remarks in the valedictory function. Thank you, Anna. And also, we are very much thankful to Dr. Professor Anupama Ahuja, Head, Division of International Relations, National Council for Educational Research, New Delhi, for her valedictory address. Madam highlighted the importance of sharing the unexplored area, that is learning disability, to the teachers is a need of the hour. Also, she emphasized the importance of research in the area and the need for systematic changes for children with learning disability. Thank you, ma'am. My sincere thanks goes to Dr. Jayanti Narayan for all her support in selecting the resource people and all her kind support to this program. She was also one of the key speakers in the program. Indeed, I'm very much delighted to thank all the resource persons of today's and yesterday's session, Dr. Geet Oberoi, Ms. Farida Raj, Dr. B.N. Rupesh, Dr. Anubham Sethi, Ms. Geeta Kopi, Ms. Archana Pokhrel Rumal, and Dr. Soumya Chandra. My sincere thanks to Ms. Anugraha for Sign Language Interpretation Assistant. Most importantly, I thank all the delegates who joined from various parts of the country for the enthusiastic presence for this two-day international webinar. I would like to thank all the paper presenters and the chairpersons of this two-day program, Dr. S. Parveen, Dr. Soumya Chandra, Dr. S. Lokesh Kumar, and Ms. V. Indrani. I thank Ms. Ramya, Gaumati, and Bindu for their feedback sharing. And I extend my heartfelt thanks to all the faculty members and staff members for their presence and support throughout the program. Special thanks to registration crew, Mrs. Indrani and Dr. Sukumari, attendance and evaluation crew, Dr. K. Dhanalakshmi and Mrs. Sendilwani, anchoring crew, Mrs. Rupavadi, Raka Ganesh, and Mrs. Hamsapriya. Also, I would like to thank media team and Mr. Karthikeya Selvam for throughout their technical support for this two-day program. With the quotation of Swami Vivekananda, once again, I thank you all. Every work has got to pass through hundreds of difficulties before succeeding. Those that persevere will see the light sooner or later. Thank you all.
Thank you, madam. I request the audience to please raise up for national anthem and invite Bhagavad Rana to sing national chorus.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय भारत पंजाब सिंध गुजरात
उत्तल हिमाचल
उज्जल जय नव शुभ जय जय